welcome to Wednesday's first video. Breaking news is about offer of humanitarian truce from Oromo Liberation Army. For decades, fighting has been going on in the Oromia region of Ethiopia between Oromo Liberation Army and government forces. In recent weeks, we have seen renewed campaign against Oromo Liberation Army. Military operations are underway. Command posts have been established led by Ethiopian National Defense Force in 3 zones of the Oromia region. And government claims that OLA has suffered heavy losses and hundreds of cabales have been retaken by government forces. But OLA denies all these claims. What did OLA say in its offer of humanitarian truce? We know that in Tigray, in March this year, between Tigray and Ethiopian government, humanitarian truce was announced. It was announced by Ethiopian government, then Tigray agreed, and then relatively we saw that after this truce, it led to relative cessation of hostilities. Can it happen in the Oromia as well? Secondly, was Somaliland, where on Thursday, opposition parties protested in clashes between protesters and government forces. 7 protesters were killed, dozens were injured. After that, Mustafa Omer, the president, banned all demonstrations. Opposition and government have established inquiry commissions to investigate the deaths of these protesters. And today, these protesters were being laid to rest at a cemetery in Hargeisa. There reportedly a government minister arrived, and that led to serious escalation between family members, relatives of the protesters who are being buried there, and the minister's security staff. Protesters, the participants of the funeral program hurled stones, and security officials fired on the procession. We have details for you and video clip. Lastly, Somali region of Ethiopia, it is becoming difficult for Mustafa Omer to visit any place in Sitti. People are confronting him. Yesterday, we reported what happened in Dire Diva, where angry youth confronted Mustafa Omer. What happened in Sitti today, we have a clip for you. It is becoming very difficult for Mustafa Omer to face people in Sitti. What is going to happen on Somali FR? But people say, Sajid, you don't know the larger game here. The involvement of federal government, involvement of Djibouti, role of Somali, Isa tribal elders. I've been covering this conflict since last year. The last 2 years, I think. And I know its background, the players, but I try to speak less because I don't want my talk to be a source of conflict. That is why I don't speak much about those elements which are involved in aggravating the situation. We have a clip of protesters in Sitti as well confronting Mustafa Omer. Firstly, viewers, Oromia region of Ethiopia, where an insurgency has been going on for decades. OLA calls it liberation struggle, government calls it insurgency. And government declared OLA, Oromo Liberation Army, a terrorist organization last year. OLA and TPLF both were declared terrorist organizations by Ethiopian parliament this year. And we know that when Tigray forces were in Amhara region of Ethiopia threatening to Addis Ababa, Ethiopian capital. OLA joined hands with Tigray Defense Force. The two met on the ground in Oromia Special Zone, North Shore Zone of the Amhara region. Later, Tigray forces retreated. OLA had to retreat as well, and then we saw start of an operation against Oromo Liberation Army. Around 2 months ago, a new military operation against OLA was launched. And after that, we saw two incidents of civilian massacres in Valaga. Government blamed the massacres on OLA. OLA denied the involvement in denied any involvement in the massacres. And after these massacres, government launched new offensive against Oromo Liberation Army, and 3 command posts of Ethiopian National Defense Force have been established in the Oromo region of Ethiopia. One is in Guji, the other is in Valaga, and the third one is in Shua viewers. And ENDF, federal forces, regional forces are part of this operation against OLA. Government says OLA has suffered losses. OLA denies it. Now, what happened a few hours ago is that Oromo Liberation Army offered humanitarian truce to Ethiopian government. It's a very important development, a significant development. Can it lead to peace in Oromia? Does it mean that OLA is under pressure in Oromia? What did OLA say in a statement? OLA said that there is a famine in Oromia. Drought is a natural phenomenon. Famine is basically political. It's man-made famine because government is focused on, government is deploying its forces, its spending on the operation against Oromo Liberation Army. That is why, due to some natural disasters and government's policies, Oromia region is facing a severe drought, which has now taken the shape of a famine. People are dying. And government says that in the areas which are famine affected, law enforcement operation is underway. Command posts have been established there. Fighting is ongoing. That is why aid agencies are not being allowed to operate in those areas where people are dying. And these areas, OLA claims, are in western, eastern and central parts of Oromia. The parts which have been traditionally very fertile, known for producing surplus of food, are now facing food shortage. And government is using operation against OLA as a pretext for blocking access to this area, drought affected areas. So OLA is proposing that it is ready to cooperate with a humanitarian truce in these areas. Cessation of hostilities and aid agencies allowed to travel to these areas. OLA will not fight, it will not attack anyone, any force, any aid agency there. Secondly, if government is not ready for this truce, if government drags its feet, or if the truce fails, OLA says it will keep on cooperating with UNOCHA, WFP, other aid agencies which should provide aid to these people in Oromia. So it's an offer of humanitarian truce from Oromo Liberation Army. Government's response is awaited. We know that last year there was a war in Ethiopia. Tigray forces were in they were in Amhara region, trying to reach the capital. Then they suffered losses, they retreated. Even then, fighting went on. Ultimately, in March this year, Ethiopian government announced humanitarian truce. Tigray agreed. And since then, there has been relative stability not complete peace, because this stability can turn into an escalation anytime. But after the truce announcement in March, things improved between Tigray and Ethiopian federal government. Now, a similar truce is being proposed by Oromo Liberation Army. Will Ethiopian government seize this opportunity and agree to this humanitarian truce offer? Or will it continue the ongoing military operation against Oromo Liberation Army? That remains to be seen. If government is in a strong position militarily, if government is in a position to completely wipe out OLA, it will not agree to this to this truce. But if government forces position is not very strong, we could see some talks between OLA and Ethiopian federal government. Whenever a truce is announced, talks are held as well. So, if OLA is offering truce, it means that it is ready to talk. It is ready to talk, because modalities of truce will be discussed. Where will this truce come into force? How long? So, these modalities and some other points will be discussed. It means that OLA is offering talks. It's ready for a negotiated ceasefire. It's the right time for the government to sit and talk with the OLA. Otherwise, this war will go on. OLA could be weak, as government claims, but this balance of power can change. Let's see, will the government respond positively to this development or not? That remains to be seen. Secondly, was Somaliland, where on Thursday, in opposition demonstrations, 7 protesters were killed and dozens were injured. Wadani and UCID parties are protesting against Mustafa Abdi, the president of the Somaliland. Opposition parties want presidential election to be held on time in November. They accuse Mustafa Abdi that he is dragging his feet. He is not sincerely steering the country towards the next presidential election due to be held in November. And on Thursday, we saw clashes between the protesters and security officials. Protesters, they hurled stones and security forces fired live ammunition. Today, on Wednesday, the funeral prayers of the killed protesters were held. And after that, their dead bodies were taken to a cemetery, I think, in Hargeisa. The funeral prayer was attended by UCID chairman Faisal Ali Warabe. I have seen his video. Wadani party chairman Abdirahman could be there as well. I have not seen that, but I have seen Faisal Ali Warabe. A government minister tried to attend the funeral program too. His name is Saeed Sulub. And there, when he arrived there at the funeral gathering, people protested. Participants hurled stones, bricks at the convoy of Minister Saeed Sulub. And security officials accompanying Saeed Sulub then started firing. Was it aerial firing or state firing? It's not clear. But reportedly, there was a serious situation and government minister had to flee. We're getting details. Was anyone injured or killed? No confirmation so far, but protesters are angry. They are accusing the government that the government is behind the deaths of these innocent protesters. Both parties are accusing each other. Mustafa Abdi accused opposition parties that they are responsible for the killing of protesters. Opposition parties are accusing the government, and both parties have established inquiry commissions. UCID, Wadani and Somaliland government, they have established fact-finding commissions. The commissions will investigate who killed the protesters, who are the perpetrators involved in what happened on Thursday. Watch this clip. First one shows the funeral prayer of the protesters killed on Thursday. The prayer was held today. And second one shows the confrontation between participants of the funeral program and Minister Said Sulub's security staff. It happened in Hargeisa a few hours ago today.
يسيح ماني حكومتها إلى علي صوح برا هلا نصوم وحين نصوم مرني هلا وقاعد نبتين نصوم مرني ميدين نسكتوني لي الصالحة أي نوبة هنين نقوم هذا هود الله إن شاء الله بالنهل الكريم وحي حق ينتستورنا هل كذا هلو دايو حبت مو قلين يلي من حبت مرد من يلي من يتهنى إلهي هينا قدر مايو وبالله التوفيق والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
طبعا احنا شو يا شو
Thirdly, we have Somali region of Ethiopia, where for the president of the region, it is becoming difficult to face public anger in Sitti zone of the region. We know that around 5 to 6 days ago, there was fighting on Afar Somali border. Afar militias took control of some territories which have been disputed for decades between Afars and Somalis. Undufo town was taken by Afar forces. Afar forces entered Sitti as well, and large-scale displacements were seen from Sitti, from Hundufo. After that, opposition parties they demanded Mustafa Omer to take action, that the government has failed to protect civilians in Sitti. Mustafa Omer is trying to control the situation. He's trying to pacify angry Somalis in Sitti. Yesterday he was in Derediva, where he addressed some journalists, community activists, and he shared government's position about what is happening on a far Somali border. And their angry youth confronted Mustafa Omer, but Mustafa Omer's security staff prevented any direct engagement with protesters and Mustafa Omer. And today, similar thing was seen in Sitti. Mustafa Omer was due to visit a place in Sitti. He arrived there, and angry protesters confronted him. Mustafa Omer had to flee reportedly, and he fled towards Afdam Warida, where protests are expected as well. So in Sitti, people are angry. We have a clip for you as well, showing angry protesters confronting Mustafa Omer in Sitti. But what is the larger picture? People say, Sajid, Djibouti is involved, Djibouti is backing Somali ISAs, Ethiopian federal government is backing Afar, PM Abiy is not happy because Djibouti is interfering in the Somali region of Ethiopia. Mustafa Omer is not from Somali ISA tribe, Adam Farah, vice chairman of PP, is from ISA tribe. So there are several players. Federal government is backing Afar. Conclusion is, and Mustafa Omer does not want to launch a new offensive because he is in alliance with the federal government of PM Abiy, which wants to crush Djibouti's support for Somali ISAs. Well, I don't speak if I don't have reliable, credible information, because if I keep on saying all these things that I have received credible information, it means that I am leading to escalation of tensions. If I have no credible information and if I make all these claims, then it means I am part of the conflict. So I should only speak what I have confirmed, what I have concluded, seeing what is happening. I personally think that Afars took advantage of Somali region's engagement with Al-Shabaab on Eastern Front. Somali regional government is preoccupied with Al-Shabaab on Eastern Front. It cannot afford to open more fronts, Western Front, with Afars. Mustafa Omer is dragging his feet because he knows that if he starts large-scale military operation on Western Front, his forces, Somali special forces, will be split on two fronts. He wants to avoid it. Djibouti's role is not a new development. We spoke about it last year as well, that Afars in Djibouti face problems and Djibouti backs Somali ESAs. But that PM Abiy is backing Afar, I have no such information. Though Afar matters a lot for PM Abiy. In case of a new war with Tigray, Afar will be crucial for Ethiopian federal government. But Somali region is crucial as well because Al-Shabaab is a serious threat. It is trying to make inroads into Ethiopia. It's not a small threat. So it's not that Somali region does not have any significance for Ethiopian federal government. Ethiopian federal government is conducting airstrikes in Somalia's territories. It is deploying ENDF, Somali Special Force, in 3 regions of Somalia. So Somali region is strategically very important, and Ethiopian federal government will do its best to stop Al-Shabaab from making inroads into the region. And that is why its Western Front should be peaceful. So I personally think that Mustafa Omer does not want to open a new front on Western side. It could happen though that after some time, if on Eastern Front things are under control, we could see government's attack on Afar positions in Hondofo. But so far, he is trying to avoid start of a new escalation. Meanwhile, Somali ESA tribal elders' role should not be ignored as well. What will they do? Will they declare war against Afars? Ugaz Mustafa Ibrahim and others who are reportedly close to Hundufo with their supporters. What will they do? Will they wait for a green light from the federal government or from Mustafa Omer's government to declare war on Afar militias in Hundofo? Will they keep on waiting? Will they wait for support from Djibouti? Several questions, but I personally think federal government, Somali regional government, they want to be focused on Eastern Front to fight Al-Shabaab, and they would like to resolve this issue through dialogue, through talks. Let's see. Thank you for watching.